Welcome to Coffey Talk, real stories from real people. I'm your host, Kate Coffey-Bacon, and every Monday we'll sit down for honest conversations about successes, failures, and the lessons we learn from both. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's talk. Welcome back to Coffey Talk. Today's conversation is for anyone that's standing at a crossroads, for people who are capable, accomplished, and still quietly wondering if they're spending their energy, their talent, and their life in the right place. I'm sitting down with Maggie Coulter, co-principal of People Dynamics Learning Group, an executive coach and a faculty member in their ICF accredited Business Coaching Advantage program. Before stepping into coaching, Maggie spent years in senior leadership roles in fintech and in banking, including serving as vice president of technology at one of North America's top banks. She led high-impact technology initiatives, complex client engagements, and enterprise-level change inside fast-moving, high-stakes environments. Today, her coaching is trauma-informed, future-focused, and grounded in more than 20 years of real-world business leadership. But this conversation isn't about credentials. It's about what happens when life interrupts the plan and forces you to ask harder, more honest questions. Maggie's shift into coaching didn't come from a career ladder moment. It came from a big life moment. Maggie, welcome to Coffey Talk.
Thanks so much, Kate. It's delightful to be here.
You are doing really powerful work in the world of coaching today. We were chatting right before I hit record. Marie Weiss speaks so highly of you and the work that you're doing. So I'm so thrilled to host you on Coffey Talk. You're doing especially powerful work around helping leaders lead with clarity, with confidence and impact without compromising who they are. And I especially love the last part of that statement. But before any of that happened, you were deep in tech. Could you take us back to the moment that you decided to make a change? What shifted internally for you before anything changed externally?
Great question. And first, I'll say I'm a big fan of Marie Weiss's too, and delighted to be connected with you because of her. And yeah, I did experience a big shift. So I had developed a good career in financial technology for about 13 years after university, and was moving my way up and talking to different mentors and starting to chart a path forward for what does this look like in 10, 20 years. And in 2004, I was diagnosed with stage 3 Hodgkin's lymphoma. And that came out of nowhere, it seems. All of a sudden, one day I was very active and in good shape. The next day I was being told I had advanced stage cancer, which was a big shock. And I underwent treatment initially, an initial 6 months of chemo, finished that, did not quite achieve remission, and officially relapsed a few months later, which is not associated. Most people who get Hodgkin's nowadays go into remission after the first line of treatment, which is great, like 95% of them. So relapsing was not a great thing for me at the time. And so I underwent more chemo, a stem cell transplant. And I'm delighted to say that actually, as of this weekend, it will now be 20 years since I went into the hospital for the transplant and have been in remission or actually officially cured since then. So it's kind of a big anniversary, and I'm delighted to be celebrating that with you right now.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled. I mean, what a story. I have been through several cancer journeys with my parents, with my extended family, and it is one of the most life-altering experiences a person can go through, and we see that in your story for sure.
Yeah, so to continue answering your question, aside from my big long story there, what I found happened upon, and now I worked throughout the whole thing. I had a new mortgage, I was newly married, and we had a lot of pressures. And so I negotiated with insurance companies to make sure I could work almost every single day throughout that treatment. And I don't recommend that, by the way. It's just how it worked for me. And kind of kept me sane, actually. On the other side of treatment and going into remission finally, I had lost something. And I didn't even see this coming, but I had lost my motivation in the financial technology sector. In the career I had been excited to build for years. I had been taking courses to further myself. And all of a sudden, I just found myself not interested anymore, which was challenging because here I was, and this was what I'd studied in school. And that was one piece of it. Another piece of it, which took a lot longer to act on, was at some level I knew that I needed to come out as the queer person I am as well. And something ended for me around that time too. I just wasn't able to name it for several years afterwards. So those were a couple of the significant changes. The other third change that I remember really stood out was I was no longer willing to get up at 6 a.m. to work out anymore. So that just stopped. And I had to find my way with that too, but I'd been doing that for years and years. So those were the three big internal changes that happened for me.
20 years. Wow. So you had very big changes. I feel like we could do an entire coffee talk just on this part of your story. I would love for you to come on and we can talk about that more. I do want to move into the work that you're doing now, but I have a question for you. 20 years ago, what I've found as I get older, what a gift it is to get older because you have the privilege of hindsight, right? You can look back and you can see you have so much clarity in your road and your story. What surprised you most about yourself during that very trying season of your life?
I think what surprised me most is that I actually had the courage to make a big change. So yeah, I had been working with a therapist at the time to try and figure out what's my next step. This was during the whole 2008 economic downturn crisis. And so, the industry was a little wobbly at the time. And I started thinking about going out on my own in some way. And I never would have thought I would be capable of doing that. I was such a good corporate employee, a good corporate citizen, and to even dream and imagine going out on my own and actually doing it. And I remember the day very well that I wrote up my letter of resignation and handed that in. And yeah, I did not know where that courage came from. Although there was in the back of my mind, I did have this thought because the prognosis wasn't great at the time. I remember thinking, if I've only got about 5 years left, it's not going to be doing this.
Right.
And that was super clear in my head.
Right. One of the things that really impacted me from your story was how honest you were about the huge reality of building a sustainable coaching career. You didn't just change industries. You had to rebuild income. You had to rebuild an identity and have the confidence to step into all of that all at the same time. You've talked about possibility-oriented realism. What does that mean to you?
Well, as you said, Kate, the hindsight is 2020. And when I look back at the journey I undertook for the next 10 years, I wish I'd known a lot more at the time. And I think what I really wished I'd had was that possibility-oriented realism. I was missing the realism at the time. I was full on into possibility and what might happen, but I was not aware of all of those changes that need to take place. And most importantly, all of the learning. So I needed to train to become a professional leadership coach. I needed to learn more about leadership itself. I needed to learn about running your own business, marketing and sales. I needed to train my network to see me in this new way. I also needed to heal still from my cancer experience. And so there was just so much going on and so much learning. And I did feel like in order to kind of keep going, I had to push reality to the side. Kind of push the income piece to the side, push the, just the reality of what it takes to build a business from scratch to the side in order to keep going. And that in hindsight did cost me. So it meant staying in a unhappy marriage for many more years than I would have liked. It meant my confidence declining significantly, affecting my self-esteem. It did cost me a lot. And when I talk to coaches in training or leaders today, I always say to them, like, this is how I did it. It's not necessarily how I recommend you do it. Having that more, that tap into what's realistic, aligned with what's you're aspiring towards and the possibilities you're trying to create. But if you marry the two of those, then you've got a much better chance of sustaining your confidence and your self-esteem and your self-respect than what I went through in those early years. Maybe it's impossible to avoid. Maybe we all have to encounter these things in some way in life, but if I can help somebody and just make it a little bit easier, that's my intent.
I'm at I'm not going to say a crossroads. That's very dramatic. I'm not at a crossroads, but I'm definitely at a point in my life where I have short moment check-ins where I think and question, is 5 years from now, Kate, going to wish that I'd done something different now? And we don't know, right? I mean, we're living and our stories are unfolding as they're unfolding. But I do have those little check-ins where I'm like, is this benefiting me 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road? Is this decision, is this path supporting that? It makes me take a little bit of inventory of my life. Like, am I spending my time in the place that is keeping me aligned in my own purpose? And the discovery area that I'm on right now, and that's a vulnerable, safe, brave space thing to share with you. But that's kind of where I am, and your story is really hitting me with the level of belief and hope. And you said something, you said you were in this diagnosis, and were you making the decisions if you only had this much time in the timeline left? Were you doing what you wanted to do with that time? And why aren't we all living that way every day? Because we don't know. But that's why I say the cancer journey is one that shakes you to your core and makes you take major inventory. Thank you for letting me have a little tangent there and sharing that with me. How did your own experience in those years of transformation shape the way that you are now leading, the way that you're coaching, and the way that you're teaching others?
First of all, I just want to acknowledge that what you did just share, and I love that question that you're asking yourself. Would 5-year Kate,
Yeah.
appreciate the choices you're making today? And also what you've shared about, yeah, we don't know our future. So yeah, it can be challenging to make those choices. So yeah, my experience has certainly informed how I'm showing up with people today. I
Mm.
have a particular passion because I'm lead faculty in this Business Coaching Advantage program. It's an ICF accredited program, and we're very pleased with it. And we bring in lots of people at various stages in their lives who want to do coach training, leadership coach training, whether they want to go out on their own or not. And that's often a bit of a question for a lot of them as they come in. And it's just become, first of all, from a purpose place, really important to me that I bring that possibility-oriented realism to my conversations with them about what they want to do with this and why. Because again, I feel responsible as an ICF school, accredited school, to be realistic with people while also holding space for possibility and something new to happen. But helping them, hold both and acknowledge both the realities that come with going out on your own, for example, what it takes to actually build a coaching practice. There's a lot out there in social media that seems to imply we can all go make six-figure salaries as coaches within 6 months. And no, that's not true for most of us. That may be true for the odd super charismatic or super well-positioned person, and I can't tell who that person is or isn't. But for most of us, it takes a lot more. And if we can just be realistic about that and start to do our research and really ask ourselves, okay, why does this matter? And what is important and what else is possible? We might be able to be more successful in bringing our coaching selves and our coaching identity into our world than just that one pathway of entrepreneurialism.
Yeah. Many of the professionals that I'm talking to are struggling with imposter feelings, owning their voice. That is an ongoing conversation that I am having with people everywhere. I will say Coffey Talk has opened up floodgates for people having these very real conversations with me, which I appreciate so very much. What patterns are you seeing most often in the leaders that you are helping?
Again, I want to acknowledge that, yes, Coffee Talk is creating a space for people to open up and share. And there's
Yeah.
so much value in that. And I really appreciate what you're doing.
No, thank you.
Yeah, so absolutely the leaders that I tend to work with best actually do struggle with imposter syndrome, perfectionism, you know, all sorts of aspects of that. And I found a really good place to work with people there because, in part, because of my cancer experience, for sure, that was a traumatic time for me. And in part because of other things I've experienced in my life. For some of us, or maybe for many of us, a lot of those kind of formative experiences we have can influence how we see ourselves and what we see as possible. And so, what I absolutely love doing, and I could not get more joy out of this, I mean, this is maximum joy for me, is being able to hold a space for people to come into, to share their real thoughts, to name things that they haven't named out loud to anybody,
Wow.
knowing that it's A, confidential, and B, that I'm not going to judge them, that I'm not going to try and fix them or change them in any way. The idea is to hold a space for people to come in and discover their own wisdom. And they do. And
Yeah.
I don't have to fix or change or solve anything. Given enough space and a sense of safety and a sense of trust, people discover their own wisdom and reconnect with that through those conversations. And I just get to sit and watch it happen. I mean, it could not get more energizing than that.
Your work feels especially grounded for me in this area. You are coming alongside these leaders, you're helping them to assess where they are. You said the word honesty, and then showing them and helping them learn how to move forward with intention. If you were just teaching them to believe in themselves, that is symptomatic of that deeper down root of purpose and intention. And when you're living in that space, I believe that's where our confidence and our belief in ourselves can come from. The thing that you say that you are helping leaders without changing them, without them feeling like they need to change or be any different. You said you're not trying to fix them. I don't believe that we're broken. I think that we need to learn new things, but I don't believe that any of us are broken. Or for someone considering a major career shift, what questions do they need to ask themselves before making that leap forward?
I didn't actually work with a career coach before I made my transition. I worked with some other kinds of coaches, but I always wish I had worked with a very skilled career coach who could have asked me things along the lines of what's important to me and really help me connect to like what matters to me most and how do those values and those important things, how can they guide me in terms of the choices I make next? I think if I had been more grounded in knowing who I was, what mattered to me, what my strengths were in terms of especially the strengths I love to use, not just the ones that I'm good at. If I was more grounded in that at the time, I think I possibly would have made some different choices along the way that would have made my journey more confidence building as opposed to taking away some of the confidence there. So yeah, starting with just what matters to people, and yeah, what do they love doing? And if they don't know the answer to that, then there are more questions to ask, right? So, like, what do they know about themselves already? What inventory can they take of themselves to date? And what are the unknowns that need to be explored before a big change happens? And then also, what are the small actions they can take that can help them give them a sense of, well, I'm actually trying something. I am changing something, because that is important to people along the way. And small changes can have a big impact. And I spend most of my time with leaders focusing on what are the small changes that can have an unbelievably big impact on your quality of experience.
Yeah, it's the 1% change every day, the atomic habits, right? It's the tiny things that we do. One of my favorite quotes is, we don't look like our goals, we look like our habits. So the things that you're doing to build those habits and that 1% change every day. I have so many questions for you. What do you think trusted feedback, what role does trusted feedback play in building self-trust? I have so many questions jotted down and I want to get to all of them.
And that is a great place to develop capacity, I find. And
Oh,
again, this took me longer than I think it may have taken others because of some of those earlier experiences I had in my life. I think my ability to seek and solicit feedback was really constrained. That felt too dangerous, too risky for me. And so it took me a long time to develop that confidence and rebuild that up again before I could even seek the kind of input that could help me along, another person's perspective. And so I actually believe that at the end of the day, we can get feedback from absolutely everything and everyone. Even the hardest, most challenging feedback can be useful to us if we have the capacity to allow it to disturb us in a productive way, like noticing that it disturbs us in some way, yet our attention keeps coming back to it. That's valuable feedback. Is that the stuff we can get a lot of that for free without even trying? The stuff we want to be actually actively seeking out is those spaces where we can access new and different perspectives in ways that are accessible and that make it easier for us to listen, that are offered without attachment, without judgment, and that are offered in service of us growing into, whatever highest potential each of us has in store. So I do feel it's important to be discerning about where and how we get our feedback until we can develop that capacity to receive it and see it and hear it from all the places. And connected with that is the capacity to be humble and have humility. And that does feel like a little bit of a later stage leadership skill that takes a little bit of maybe age and maturity or, different kinds of positive experiences earlier on to grasp. But we can get to a place where we can bring humility to our own development. The potential is absolutely unlimited.
I need a minute with that one. That was
At least that's what I believe.
That was really, I'm in the middle of that right now. And so I appreciate this affirmation of being in the right place in my own leadership development. This is a very real time conversation with me. This is where I am in my learning. One of the things that I see is I'm in a leadership course right now. And it's a very powerful dig down a lot of this kind of work, Maggie. And one of the things that I'm not necessarily seeing in my group, which I'm thankful for, but in other groups I've been in before, that looking at reflecting in on yourself has a lot of people see it as a weakness or an indecision and inability to make a decision. So how can leaders create space for that reflection without seeing it as weakness or indecision?
Yeah, and I think just even acknowledging off the bat that that's maybe part of our belief system, that self-reflection, that inner work is weakness, is a good place to start. It's okay. I see this as a weakness, and am I still willing to try? Is there something that's still compelling me? So not wasting time or energy kind of fighting the weakness belief, but just recognizing that may be part of you. I mean, as I said, as a queer person, I had a lot of I still have a lot of internalized homophobia. And I've just had to come to terms with that, accept that that's part of who I am, and continue to develop on my path and make choices that align with who I really am. So yeah, I think not wasting energy on kind of fighting our beliefs, but rather acknowledging them and seeing, and also putting attention on what else. What are we willing to explore? What are we willing to try? Who can support us in that? Yeah.
I think finding that trusted support, you said that feedback that's given without judgment is crucial to, especially to someone that might not easily trust feedback coming. So to find that person that can be a mentor, can be a coach to you, I think is the first step, is the unlock. As we start to kind of land this conversation, I want to bring it back to the people that may be listening who may feel capable but uncertain. So if you were speaking to them, what do you most want listeners to remember after this conversation?
The word slow down just popped into my head. When I early on in my career transition, I recognized that urgency was such a factor. And urgency can drive us into all sorts of weird and strange directions. And so even just pausing for a moment to kind of take a breath and recognize any urgency that's at play allows our true knowing and our wisdom to emerge. But it needs that space. It needs that silence. It doesn't have to be hours and hours or 10-day silent retreats. I've never done that. I don't think I ever will. It's just too much. But even 5 minutes of silence lets our nervous system know we're okay and we're listening. And that knowing can come up and guide us and move us forward in the best directions for us. If we can create some space for it or make some space for it, working with the coach can help you be accountable to holding that space for yourself. A lot of leaders, most leaders I talk to, talk about hiring a coach because they want to be held accountable to taking time to reflect. So getting that support that you need along the way. Yeah. We don't know how long we have in this life, and every moment is the moment. And if we can recognize it's the moment right now, it's the moment we have, and give it the space that it wants and desires and needs, we'll be in a better position to know and make the best choices that are for us.
Every moment is the moment is definitely a hot take quote from this episode. It'll make the carousel, I assure you. Maggie, this is such a grounding and real conversation to me. I'm sure it will be for others that are listening. We tend to walk around thinking we're stuck in our own heads and we're in our own way, and we think we're the only one that's struggling, and we're not. And when we step out and start having these conversations, we start sharing that camaraderie of I'm not alone. And so I know that I am not alone. And how grounding this conversation has been today. It is reminding me that optimism doesn't come from pretending things are any easier than they are. Your encouragement for your leaders to take true, honest inventory of where they are is brave for them and brave for you to hold that space for them. So thank you so much for sharing your story, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing everything that you're doing right now in this very, very powerful way. And to everyone that's listening, my goodness, thank you. And in all of the noise that's out there, thank you for spending part of your day with Maggie and for myself. If this episode is resonating with you, or you think someone may need it, please share it with someone who might need permission to pause, to be still, to reflect, and choose what's next with honesty. Maggie, again, thank you so much for coming on to Coffey Talk. Until next time, this has been Coffey Talk. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you for joining us today on Coffey Talk. A special thanks to my guests for sharing their story and to you, the listener, for being a part of this conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a Monday morning chat. Until next time, I'm Kate Coffey-Bacon, and this has been Coffey Talk.